Hey everyone, it's Mike from Junkion Crafts and Builds, and this is a different type of video than my usual fare. This is going to be a lot more entertaining and educational, I'm sure. But this is kind of following up with some of the other videos and discussions I'm going to have on the channel this week from Toy Tuber Expo this past Sunday in New Jersey. And again, shout out to Articulated Ninja and Joe Viteri Productions for really putting together an awesome convention and having a slew of amazing YouTube talents and vendors, and it was just a really awesome time. And part of that was 4 panels that were available throughout the day, and I was able to attend 2 of them, and one of them was Duarte Studios. So for some reason, if you are not familiar with Duarte Studios, he does a lot of custom diorama work. He uses 3D printers. He's, building these amazingly detailed works of art for collectors to display their toys and photography and all sorts of stuff. So at this expo, I was able to procure one of his exclusives. That's the Crash Kit. I even had the, I asked him if he wouldn't mind signing my box, and he did, which was awesome. So I've kind of briefly talked to Duarte a couple times throughout this year and previous years at different conventions. He's very prominent at like Legion's Con and ToyCon New Jersey. And just to talk to him, shake his hand, and really appreciate the talent and the creativity that he produces for his clientele. So I wanted to sit in on his panel. I was able to film the entire thing, and I reached out to him and asked if he wouldn't mind if I posted it on here for people to see. And he was like, yeah, that's really awesome. It really, he didn't even think about something like that. So this is the slightly edited Duarte panel. And what I mean by slightly is I might cut some dead air out, and I might transcribe individuals' questions just for clarity. And basically just let Duarte talk to you, the viewers. So I hope you enjoy it. And yeah, let's listen to Duarte.
Thank you so much. And our first panel presenter is Duarte Studios. Some of you guys might know him as the Dial King. I don't know what crazy person named him that. At the end of the day, he's here to answer any questions. So literally, there's no question that's too dumb. I asked him a lot of really dumb questions. So nobody's questions are going to be stupider than mine. Ask him whatever you want to. He's here to answer any and everything. Dioramas, 3D printing, design, engineering, all the behind the scenes stuff. He's worked with multiple companies already. So ask away, please. Duarte. Thank you. I'm not used to talking in front of people.
That was a good introduction, by the way. Yeah. Come on, yo guys, shout out to Ninja. All right, so now that I'm here, who wants to ask any questions? Anybody? If not, I'll just talk.
How did you get started doing this?
So my question.
Being bored when I was a kid and cartoons, right? You see the cartoons living in their little worlds, and you want a world, right? You go to the toy store and you buy the turtles, but there's no sewer layer, there's no alley, there's no any of that stuff, so started making it. But back then I didn't know what insulation foam was. I knew what cardboard was. So a lot of cardboard. Every time mom came home with refrigerators or AC units, I'm like, yes, cardboard box. So I would turn that into something, duct tape, I learned staples, skirt, your finger, stuff like that. So yeah, that's what it was. It was just a necessity for diorama stuff, accessories, things like that, and that's kind of what got me started. That and Beetlejuice. That movie as soon as you go up into the attic and they see that little town, I'm like, I want my little town.
Yeah, join the club.
Except my little town's 12 scale, so it ain't so little.
Do you remember the first one you did, like as a kid?
Yeah, it was a Spawn alley. It was an alley for Spawn, and that was back in 90, I don't remember, back then, 90 something. Yeah, Spawn, that was my first one. Before Trains. Trains was probably, the HO scale stuff was one of my big things, so my father was big into Trains, that's where we connected. So that kind of started it for me, but for figures, yeah, Spawn was definitely my go-to thing.
What project are you most proud of?
Wow. My daughter.
There you go.
Man, that's a hard one. Honestly, I think the Power Ranger one, just because I get the same reaction from everybody. Pictures don't do it justice. I didn't think it was this big. That's what she said. So yeah, I'd probably say that one because it's the most nostalgic, and I feel like I've gotten compliments from people who don't even collect, but they know what that is. I've seen that before. That's the command center. That's that thing in California. So I'd say that one because it's probably the most relatable one.
So, as your prestige has grown and you start showing more and more of your projects, you said that you've been introduced to more of the brands and companies to come up with ideas or pitches or actually coming up with creations and collaborations. Has anyone come to you with a project idea that is just like blew your mind, or like, damn, that's something I never thought of, and now it got the creative juices going?
I wouldn't say that they necessarily came to me with the idea. I kind of went off of what someone else had already done and said, what would be cool, this, and they were like, yes, and that person was Chad. And I saw one of on his channel, he had done a video of a 1/18 scale, the Metal Gear Solid figures that he did, the customs. I'm a big Metal Gear Solid fan. So I saw that and I started doing the math, and I'm like, we did a Metal Gear Rex in 1/18 scale. That thing would be about 3.5 feet tall. That's doable. And I'm like, Chad, really cool. And he's like, how much? And he was like, yeah, let's do it. So that project I'm looking forward to because, you guys, I think most of you have seen my mech already. It's about yay big. This thing's gonna tower that 2.5 times and fully articulable.
Wow.
Deep interior, the whole nine. So I'm excited about that. Also doing the Cobra Island playset for him. I'm excited for that because we got to speak to the guy who actually designed it, right? And I got to talk to him at DFW about it, and he's excited that I'm gonna bring it to life. I'm gonna bring the vision exactly the way that he wanted it, designed back then, color palette, everything in the 1/18 scale, so Chad could have that. But then I'm gonna put a little Duarte twist to it in the 1/12 scale.
Oh, jeez.
Fantastic.
Yeah. What else?
Are you planning on doing any like actual figures?
So I've been asked that already, actually in the last week, and in a perfect world, yeah, sure, I'll do figures. But there's so many people making them, and I feel like what I'm doing is more needed because no one's doing it yet. More people are doing it, which is great. I want people to do more diorama work. I actually encourage people to do it because a lot of times, people say, your stuff's a little expensive. Yeah, absolutely it is. But when you actually put in the time, the effort, the work, the hours, and they go, man, I don't know how you do this. Well, that's why you pay those prices, right? So, I'd say so. Yeah.
Do you ever find a need to mix foam with the 3D print?
All the time.
Okay, so that is a normal thing.
All the time, yeah. Well, in the beginning it wasn't because I enjoyed making things by hand, right? Mm-hmm. But if I'm having to replicate a dumpster 400 times, after the 5th time, I want to, split my pinky, right? So that's where I'll implement the 3D printed designs, and it'll be my design. So it's still, you get that thing where, it's being printed, so it should be cheaper, but it's still my design, it's still my piece, it's still my paint, my post work, all that stuff. But that's obviously helping keep the price down because I'm not carving these little tiny nuances of the,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, absolutely. Mixed media, I encourage it all the time. wood, metal, the command center, you'll see that there's like aluminum supports on them, things like that. So I like to overbuild everything, overstructure it so this way if there's no issues, God forbid you drop something. So, yeah.
How many hours did you put in per commencement?
The first one's always more because it's the learning curve, right? And that one, I'm a super stickler about just how things go together. Like, and you can't see it, which sucks. I show people in the picture, but the blue command center piece itself, it actually has over 200 feet of wiring inside of there. But the way that I wired everything and color coded the looms, you would think that it was like an artwork because I literally have everything separated. Like it doesn't look like a bird's nest under there, but you can't see it, right? So that took a long time because of how to route the wires. Once I figured that out and I was able to cut a few hours of downtime, I'd say that now I can comfortably put one together about 120 hours. And that's not including print time because the print time itself, it takes me, if I took just one dedicated printer, it would take 3.5 weeks to print just one command center. Wow.
Who was your biggest artistic inspiration, and what about them and their work inspired you?
Wow, that's a good question. I don't think I've ever been asked that one. I'd say famous person, and it ain't gonna make sense, especially with all my work, but famous, I'd say Picasso. It's one of my favorites. In the real world, people that I've met, and actually, my father, because he's very, very good with construction, like building things raw kind of stuff. Not the fine, pretty stuff. Like he's like a bull in a china shop when it comes to I get the nuance and detailed stuff from my mom. She's very like detail oriented when it comes to that stuff. But I definitely I'd say him because he's a million times more humble than anybody that I know. We'll be driving down somewhere and he'll be like, that house right there. I'm like, really? Oh, that sucks. Because no one's gonna know. No one's gonna know. And I feel so bad. I'm like, you've done such beautiful work and no one's gonna know. I'm like, where was YouTube 30 years ago? But yeah, I'd say my father. I love Picasso's work. I think the guy's crazy. I'm a little crazy, so I can relate. But yeah, that's it, my pops.
How do you divvy your time between your personal projects, working with other companies, keeping things that you regularly have in stock, as well as custom commissions?
That's a great question. I think the best way to answer that, truthfully, would be I don't know. I just keep going. If I stop, that's the problem. But no, I over the years I've gotten better with. All right, I think this item's great. It's gonna sell. I haven't sold any. What the hell? This item sucks. I'll make 4. You have these. I'll take 10 of them. So I've gotten really good with what might sell, what's gonna sell, what won't sell. And then the things that do sell, in my mind, I'm like, all right, free time, the printer's open, I'm just gonna print that thing that sells. I have 30 of them on standby or 40 on standby. Commission-wise, so I get up, I have a routine. I'll get up in the morning, and when I get up, I'm usually not in that super moving around mood, so that's my design time, because I'm just chilling behind a computer, I'm kind of either having my coffee or my water, whatever it is. I'm designing, I'm researching. 2 p.m. hits, I'm super all over the place, I'm bouncing all over the wall, so that's when I'm cutting stuff, I'm grinding, I'm building things. Then towards the end, or like at night after I've had dinner and I'm like, I don't really feel like bouncing around no more, then I'll probably grab a paintbrush and paint and do all that stuff. So it's essentially, if I have a commission and I have, these things that need to be painted, I kind of put them together into my paint session. So if I have 10 jobs that require paint work, they all get painted together. So it's never really the same schedule all the time, other than my routines of my research, my design for this X amount of time. But then as far as paint work, that's pending whatever's going on. So if I'm doing a design for Bobby and I'm doing a design for that company and that company, I'll design them all at the same time. And I bounce back and forth because what happens is that dopamine, it doesn't hit the same anymore. So when that initial design comes out or I'm doing that initial work, I'm in the middle of it, but now I'm thinking about that job over there. So if my brain starts to veer over there, I'm like, okay, cool, I'm done with that, and I move there. So I'm bouncing. So when I finish one job, I'm actually finishing 10. to keep myself busy, because I can't, my brain won't allow me to focus on that one job from start to finish unless I'm like PT, because after a while I feel like I'm dragging on. So I have to bounce from project to project, and that's what keeps it fresh for me. Because if I did military all the time, I'd get tired. If I did Dragon Ball Z all the time, I'd get tired. So I kind of just bounce around.
When did the YouTube aspect come into play?
I want to say, honestly, after I made the channel, as soon as I started pushing this, I was like, oh, I gotta make a YouTube, I gotta make a TikTok, an Instagram, all these things that I thought I needed. And then it's like, well, I don't have the time. And if I can make money off of YouTube, yeah, maybe in 20 years I'll make 12 cents, you know? So it's like, do I do that, or do I build this 4,700 hour dial? You know, so, but the YouTube thing started, I want to say probably after I started dealing with Ninja a lot full time, because he was the one that kept pressing me about it. He was actually the one that was like, bro, you changed the logo. You got this like fucking Funko Pop thing on. At the time, I was making Funkos and it was good money, you know? But then like everything else, it just became oversaturated, and like now I have 30, 40 gallon totes that are full of Funkos I can't give away. So yeah, I'd say about like 3-4 years ago is when it started. And honestly, it's not anywhere near where I want it to be. I would love to at least put up a video once a month. But I'm even more of a perfectionist with the videos than I am with the Dio stuff, because I'm way more comfortable with the Dio stuff. I feel like I can do that in my sleep, and the design work and the engineering. But when it comes to the videos, I'm very particular, because you guys are watching. And if you're not entertained, then I'm not doing my job. And if I feel like I'm not being entertaining enough, then I don't want to put out the video. So I have 34 terabytes of raw footage. Everything you've ever seen me put out diorama-wise, I've recorded, like physically recorded myself doing it. Mm-hmm. So I have countless hours of footage of everything I've ever built. I just haven't had time to solve. Like the videos you have seen that I've done, those are the ones that everything just fell into the right place, and it worked out. The video was cool, I liked it. But I have videos at home that are probably 99% of the way, and I'm like, well, that song sucks, or my audio's not good, or, you know, so. But I'm trying. I want to get more out on more tutorials, because I want more people to get into this and, you know, do it themselves. I love when people buy the unfinished stuff from me, and then they'll hit me up like, oh, how do you paint this? Well, what kind of paint should I use? And let them do it, you know, and they appreciate it more anyway, so it works out.
You use a lot of 3D printers in your time, so you have a lot of experience. What would you think would be a good price for starting, if you wanted to start 3D printing, what would be a good solid price to start at?
Do you want a headache? Do you want to repair these all the time? Sometimes.
That, no, I can tell you, yeah. Because you waste a lot of time repairing, and especially me being a one-man shop, it's, you know, your time is more valuable.
You're spending anywhere between $1,000 and $2,000 for a good printer.
That's not bad.
But I'll preface it with, I own, so there's a company out of, I think they're in Connecticut, if I'm not mistaken, they're called Mark Forge. And the one thing that sucks about them is that they're proprietary, so their filament, you have to use their filament. However, their filament's carbon infused nylon. It has 3.5 times more tensile strength than aluminum.
Oh, wow.
And it's like $220 for 1 2-pound roll. It's a $6,500 printer. I have 7 of them, and they break regularly. So your $200 printer will break, but it won't. But it'll break way more often than your $1,000 printer. And the difference between the for example, Prusa, Bamboo Labs, Anycubic, I think that Elegoo maybe, I'm not sure because I haven't dealt with them recently, but those 3 that I mentioned, they have people you can reach out to in the States, and warranty, and like really good customer service, and that's important because I don't want to sit and wait for parts. Right. You know, oh, it's coming from China. Well, now I'm out of printer for 6 weeks, and one printer makes a difference. Oh, yeah. I run at any given time when they're all functioning, I have 42 3D printers. Wow. So, but right now, if you ask me how many I have that are functioning at peak performance, 7.
Yeah. Listen, I'm only thinking of 2. So.
And I thought to myself, I'm like, these are basically full-time employees.
Yep.
So if I can get more of these, I can produce more, I can make more. Yeah, they break more, and then you spend more time fixing them, and so more printers, more problems.
Yeah.
You want to get the best that you can get 2 or 3, and then if you're gonna move past that, get somebody to basically manage your printers.
Got it.
Because my printers aren't all working because I don't have time to fix them.
Mhm.
But then it gets to the point where you need to, because now all of them are out, and you're like, well, I got no choice.
I know exactly. I spent 2 days trying to fix a regular printer, and and I needed it.
Right.
So I get it.
Me and Bob breaking down, like, what's the problem with the printer breaks down?
Oh, I can sit here for 3 hours. Telling you what's wrong. But I mean, the main ones, heat filament is made in somebody's basement in China, so it's gonna have dust and debris in that filament, which will clog your extruder tip. When that tip is clogged, you gotta remove that tip, but when you remove that tip, you have to re-level the entire printer. If you do that improperly, you're gonna have a thermal runway, there's a million things that can go, and that's the problem, right? Because 90% of the time when something does go wrong, you can kind of pinpoint like, oh, there's a clog. Well, if I change the tip and I change the little PET tube in there, there can't be no more clog. So it's one of those 2 things. But if you have, I don't know, electrical surge, let's say, for example, one of the resistor blows, and you can't figure out why that printer keeps going like this in that one spot, what the hell is going on? Bro, I have printers that I still can't figure out what's wrong with them. And I've been doing this professionally since 2013, and I've been messing with 3D printers, like just playing around with them since 2002.
Jeez.
So, yeah. Well,
What's your thought process going into a complex electrical wiring project? Do you start that at the very, very beginning, or do you pull the big concept and then wire it after the fact?
So I always go for the aesthetic first. So for example, we use the command center. I know that the command center piece needs to be that specific size. It can't be any bigger because then it won't look scaled. So that's the scale. After I figure out the scale measurement wise, then I go and say, all right, am I able to fit all of the required lights, all of the required, wires? And in that case, I wasn't able to fit all of the LEDs I would want to fit because it just didn't have enough space. So I had to improvise and run fiber optics. With fiber optics, you can use, for example, for people that don't know what fiber optics is, think of a strand of spaghetti, but it's clear, and you put a little light on one end, and it'll basically shine on the other end, and you can bend it in whatever place you want. So by doing so, you can take 50 of these strands, put them together to make it look like there's 50 LEDs, and get one LED at the end, and tie them all into it this way, wrap some tape or something black around it, and all that light's funneled through, and it looks like you have 50 independent lights. So that was one of the things that I had to do with that to fit that space. But I go with the aesthetic first, and then I make sure that I can fit the stuff in there. And then if I can't, then I say, all right, do I have a space somewhere else that I could hide this big power supply or this big battery in and route the wires and the lights and all that stuff. But any big project, whether it's wiring or just anything complicated, the best way that I could describe, and I say this all the time, my brain works like Jarvis. I look at something like this microphone and I'm staring at it and I'm blowing this up in my head. I know this has 3 pieces here, and if I don't, I need to know how it works because I'm weird like that. So I have to know how things break down. So with that said, when you commission me to build this for you, I build it in my head 300 times before I even touch it. Because when I go to do it, I only want to do it once. And I don't want to, cut it wrong. I did this. And I do make mistakes still. But I try to build it in my head as many times as possible. I try to think, all right, this is gonna sit here, how would it look? What if somebody's looking at it from the front? What's the angle gonna look like? I think about all those things hundreds of times before I touch anything, and then I go to town on it.
You just mentioned the electronic components of the command center. What other collateral skills have you picked up from doing the dials since your childhood and now?
Well, I think it actually is reverse for me in the sense of I brought skills from everything else I've done into the dial thing, right? Because I didn't actually learn anything from the dials for the real world, but in reverse I did. So the wiring that I do with that comes from the fact that I built race cars and race motorcycles for 10 years. That was my company, Exclusive Imports. And I shut it down because, unfortunately, in that industry, everyone has caviar taste of Pizza Hut money. You know, and it's one thing to sand a small car and $300, you know, here's a custom Vanguard, right? Versus, hey, I want this Honda Civic with this 10-stage cherry red paint job, but I'm only willing to pay Mako money. It's $500, you know. It's like $500 won't even cover the materials. So it got really stressful with that, and I just got tired of breaking a sweat. So I went from breaking a sweat outside in a garage paying a rent to basically paying my rent at home and sweating in my house. So, but the electronics came from the race car scene. The building aspect came from my father teaching me woodworking stuff, and in high school, wood shop, messing around. When I started in high school, freshman year, the first project we had was a birdhouse. Right? And it took the kids like a month to do the birdhouse. I built a bird mansion in like a week. It was like this big, it had 3 roofs, and it had like spots for like 12 birds. And when I did that, Mr. Murphy, I'll never forget, he was like, what do you want to build next? I'm like, I don't know. Whatever. He's like, well, we got this little car, and I'm like, can I build like what I want? He's like, yeah. I was like, cool, I want to build a pool table. He's like, you don't have space for that. I said, well, a little one. So I went online. This was like the beginning of like eBay. I bought like the 1.5-inch pool balls with the small cue, and I built a 6-foot pool table in wood shop in a month. And then after that, I was allowed to do whatever the hell I wanted. He was like, do it. So I would build all sorts of crazy shit. All the tools I couldn't afford, these fancy routers and jigsaws and table saws. I started using all the stuff there and learning it there. So then when I finally knew how to use it, I'm like, cool, it makes sense for me to spend $400 on this jigsaw. Or, you know, so taking those tools and the cutting, the construction, the wiring, the electrics, learning how to mess with ECUs, doing car tuning, stuff like that, I bring that into this. So that's why it's very wow for a lot of people, because they're not really used to that. They're used to these cool diodes that maybe have one functioning right, but not one that has over 1,000. You know, and then how do you power that? Well, you learn that by dealing with stuff like how I deal with it. You know what power supplies to deal with, all those things. And I tell people, like, you can ask me, hey, go here, here's a link, go buy it from there, because I'm not selling that stuff. But my real world experience has actually come into play with this and helped me push these even further than your standard diorama.
So you've been in it long enough to see the beginning of the 3D printers. We all remember the dot matrix printers now that we've got, you know, Canons that do full color on them. So where do you see, how far away are we from the equivalent to the Canon photo printers to 3D printers from where we started? Like how far away are we from Star Trek, where you just, you know, say, hey, I want to make this, and it makes it?
More than 10 years. Maybe even 20, to be honest. I genuinely feel like because it's a matter of when, it's not even an if, but back in the day, no one had nobody had a fax machine or a paper printer. Now everybody and their mother got them, you know, and then they do all kinds of fancy stuff. You can print pictures, and it's easy. When it gets to that point, I feel like, you know, if you're using your little Dyson vacuum or your Hoover vacuum, right, and something breaks, and you call them up under warranty, hey, this broke, what part broke? The one with the serial number ABC on it. Cool, we're sending you the file, you can print it out.
Right.
You know, I feel like it's gonna get to that point. I feel like a lot of these companies are gonna start selling you basic kits, whatever. Here's a basic coffee machine, but here's our extended files for this adapter piece and this piece, and it's almost like, I feel like these companies are starting to make things similar to a Walmart. We're literally paying them to do their job, because we have to self-checkout.
Right.
They're not rigging us up. So now these companies, why are they gonna mass produce this stuff when they can just, you know what, you can print it out for yourself. You know, I feel like that's where it's gonna go, but we're a very long way from there. Because like I said, I have some of the most high-end printers, and they break. It's like, it's inevitable. The wear and tear on them is just, it doesn't make any sense why they break the way they do, because I can spend a lot of money on aftermarket parts and build a printer that's almost unbreakable, but even that will still break. So there's still a lot of limitations, but compared to where it was back in 2002, that was one of my biggest regrets. I never did stocks or anything like that, because I didn't really care, and I'm like, I don't want to lose my money. Stratasys, which was the company that did MakerBot, and they actually, I think they patented and did the 3D printing thing like 40, because 3D printing's actually been around for almost 50 years, but it's become mainstream recently. So I regret not like investing into that company because their stocks now are through the roof, and they own like almost every major company with 3D printing stuff behind the scenes. So, but yeah, it'll be a while, 10, 20 years at least.
Which is not that long.
No, it really isn't, if you think about it now. But it'll get to that point.
Right.
The other thing too is, companies like Bamboo Labs, they did something recently that was very frowned upon. So they have their web service thing, right? You can download files, you can print files. But now they made it where their software is proprietary to them, which is fine, but they control it. So I'm gonna give you an example. If I go and I print a piece for my AR, right? Technically it's illegal, right? But if I try to do it on the Bamboo Labs, they can actually stop me from printing. So I bought their printer, I own it. But they can actually prevent me from printing things based off of a name. What if I was printing an AR for Valibers in 12 scale? So now I have to go out of my way to name it a 112 Pew Pew, you know, so I can print it on my property. So a lot of the guys, including myself, are not fans of that. So I kind of stopped messing with them because like, I already paid for it. What do you mean I have to pay or I can't print that because it's called this, because you decided that it was. So they're testing that. They're getting a lot of kickback from that. So I don't think that there's going to be any more companies going that route, but they're always trying some stuff.
That's very similar to streaming movies where you're paying them you buy it, but yes, they can take it away anytime they want.
Exactly. Yeah.
Can you talk about the inspiration and creativity behind this Expo's exclusive from your company?
Yeah, man. So I've been doing like kit style things, like accessories to go with, you know, like the Vanguard and things. I've been doing that for a long time in the RC industry because I still have my exclusive RC company where I do similar things like this, but for remote control stuff, like high-end excavators, construction equipment, semi-trucks, things like that. So repeat your question. I want to make sure
No problem. Can you just talk us through the process of your creation for this year's exclusive?
So Ninja knew that I did the accessory stuff for all these other companies, but he's always busting my balls and he's like, but they don't know. And I'm like, you can look it up, you know, exclusive RC, I talk about it all the time. He's like, yeah, but they don't know. They've never seen it in this industry. They've never seen like a kit, you know, like that. So your engineering and how things go together and, you know, just make it work. And we had talked about originally I was going to do like a mech thing because I'd already done the big mech, but this other company had already done it. And I'm like, I don't want to do it, you know, even though it'll be different, whether it's better or worse or a different color, it would be different, but it's already there. You know, if you've already purchased that, you're probably not going to buy it again, right? If you have a sports car, you're not going to buy a sports car. You might want to buy a pickup this time. So I was like, well, what hasn't been done? What don't we have? We don't have that many helicopters. I was originally going to do a little Blackbird, right? But then I was like, let me do something different. And then I saw the Trouble Bubble and I was like, I gave up on the idea for the mech. I was like, I don't even want to do it no more. But then I said, you know, it would actually be cool if you turn this thing into a little helicopter. I can kind of visualize it and see it, and I don't have it with me. I'll post it up online for everybody to see, but the first rendition of that looks completely different. Like, looks nothing like what you see now. And then I just didn't like the aesthetic, the nose, everything, so then I did a few tweaks, and about 6 renditions in, I popped that out. But it was basically to kind of give everyone an introduction to like, hey, how you doing? I make kids too, you know? And here's an example, and this is just a little taste of what's really to come. I'm working on right now a big project for, I don't know if you guys have seen the 16-foot G.I. Joe Dio I did months back, the massive one. That same customer commissioned me to do a M1070, M1000 trailer with the Bradley tank in the back. So this thing will be about 7 feet long. I'm working on that now, and I plan to unveil it at Legion's Con, hopefully, if all things go well. That's the other downside to this, right? Is when you're doing this stuff and let's say I'm printing everything's going good, but next week, for whatever reason, all my printers decide to take a shit. Now I'm set back 3 weeks, you know? And that'll be the week, this is Murphy's Law. When one thing goes wrong, it all goes wrong. As soon as my printers fail, I get an email saying that, you know, my credit card didn't go through. And then after that, I get that one customer that's like, hey, where's my order? Or where's my order? And it's like, when did you order? Yesterday.
Yeah.
That's where your order is.
Yeah.
You'll get it at some point.
No, indeed, sorry.
Sorry. I'm sorry I didn't order it. I'm sorry I didn't ship your order today that you're gonna place tomorrow. Anyone else?
How did you transition from like a regular job to doing this full time?
So I've only ever had, well, my first job was working for this company called AC Moore, which is now I think Michaels is what they turned into. I was like 16, went behind the ears, and that was the first time I worked for the man, and it was like, oh cool, this is what slavery feels like? Like, oh, all right, cool, I'll make some money, you know, whatever. Then from there, I was like, I can't keep doing this. Like these people, like how do you work here and not know your things? And it's just very annoying. So then I was like, oh, telemarketing? Probably do that. Oh my gosh. Yeah, hi, how you doing? I'm click. Fuck off. All right, can't do that either. So then I literally started my own business at 17 when I was in high school doing the custom shirts, the Timberlands, the airbrushing, the hats, all that fancy stuff. And then from there, I transitioned to doing car stuff. Like, I was that young guy with his little Civic and I wanted to race everybody. And then that turned into my show car, you know, 4 years later, 300 plus first place trophies. Like the same caliber of work that I do with this stuff, I was doing with that. And that was like my official business. In between that, my father made the biggest mistake of his life and decided he wanted to get into a franchise. And he's like, you want to partner with me? So we invested money, and I don't know if you guys have heard of this little place called Amco Transmission. We had one of those, unfortunately. In the beginning, franchises are great. You get a ton of money, they help you out. But then it's like, cool, you owe us advertising fees. Every week is $1,000. I only need $400 this week on 2 oil changes. Like, oh, well, cool, well, yeah, I guess we're closing down the business. So I've only ever worked for the man, so to speak, maybe 2-3 years of my life, and I've been working for myself ever since with just multiple businesses. And multiple businesses, not because they fail, but because I either get tired or I realize I don't really love this and we move on to the next thing. So I used to do tattoos for a living I've been tattooing since 2008. And now I haven't done a tattoo in, I don't know, 4 or 5 years because I'm extremely selective. But that was another thing. I was doing those, but at tattoo shops, you get people that come in and they're like, yeah, I want my boyfriend's name on my neck. And I'm that guy that's like, I don't do names. Sorry. You know, oh, that's your daughter. That's different. Your son, cool. Your wife, probably not today. Husband today, not tomorrow. No. So, yeah, I only ever worked for a company a few times and I couldn't do it. I can't do it because it boils down to, and I said this on Ninjas Live the other day, it boils down to appreciation. As an employee, if I don't feel appreciated for what I'm doing, it's not worth it for me. And not because Apple makes $1 billion a day and I need to have a cut of my $1 billion. No, I'm just a little cog in the system. But treat your employees with respect, you know, and like the way they should be treated, because at the end of the day, they're putting money in their pocket. And at a young age, I couldn't, you know, because it was like, oh, I'm replaceable and you can treat me like shit and I'm good. If I'm gonna fail, I'm gonna fail on my own. I don't wanna fail because of somebody else, so.
For your Power Ranger dial, how much is 3D printed and how much is hand carved? And how do you ensure that your hand carved pieces will match?
So I'd say about 90% of it's designed and printed by me, and then the other 10% would be the raw materials, the foam, the carving, and I intentionally don't do them the same on purpose. Like if I needed to have it where, for whatever reason that they needed to be exact, I would make a jig, right? I would make a jig and then I would run my hot knife or whatever I'm using to cut through that jig, so it would basically be 99% accurate all the time. But in this case, I do them differently intentionally, as far as like the rock might be a little different here because I want them all to have they're all gonna come with their own serial number, their own certificate of authenticity. And I think that's why people pay what they pay, is because they want that one-off touch. They don't want the mass-produced or the same thing that person has, you know? So I make them different intentionally, even with the washes on the outside. They'll all have that similar wash, but the streak might be longer on this one versus that one. And that's okay, because I do that intentionally.
Being that you made a command center, have you got any like crazy requests to do like Rita's Moon Palace, some of the Zords, like a Serpentera at like a huge scale?
So Rita's Palace was definitely a one that was requested and one that I am going to do for sure because that'll also be a multiple Rita's Palace and Zed, you know, obviously,
Nice.
and the Monstermatic and the machines and all of those things. So for sure, those will definitely be things that I want to do and make. I'll let out a little secret here for the first time that no one's heard before. Well, maybe 2 people have, but if you notice, I didn't really show much love to the White Ranger.
I was just about to say that.
He's actually my favorite. No, and there's a reason for that. Because he's going to be the only one I'm going to make the Zord for.
Oh,
And it will transform, and it will be 6 feet plus tall. So, yeah. I can't wait for that one. I'm going to try to recreate it with stop motion like on the show when the Tiger Zord's doing the little thing on top of it, all that.
All right, Duarte, I hate to do it, but I'm gonna agree with 5-minute warning.
Excellent. Yeah, time to do it.
Yeah, it's good.
That's good.
More questions, or?
Yes, and I hate it with every inch of my soul because it's so finicky. It's even more finicky than the standard printers, right? Proper ventilation. So you need to have either your own room or your own closet for it. Like when I had my setup, I had a ventilation system out the window because like the stuff is toxic, it'll kill you. Having to wear the gloves, you can't touch the stuff. I was one of those guys that's like, whatever, bro, it's resin. Yeah, right. After the first week of touching raw resin and all that stuff, bro, your cracks, your skin starts to flake off like it's bad. So the fact that I have to go in there like a SWAT team, I feel like I'm just gonna kick through a glass, like, let me print this thing up. So yes, it's great for detail, fantastic, especially smaller detail. But if you look at it wrong, it'll break because it's brittle. You can print with better quality resins and not make it, but now you're talking a $40 bottle versus a $90 bottle. It's just too much cleanup for me, too much work. Because with the other printers, it's like, cool, build plate. Pop it off, put it back on, wipe it maybe with alcohol, you're good to go. This thing, you gotta pull it off, you gotta scrape it off, you gotta clean it, then you gotta put it in alcohol bath, then you gotta cure it, then I'm good. I have 8 of them at home and I haven't turned the resin printer on in 2.5 years. Like I'm looking for somebody that's like, hey, you want my printers? I'll give them to you and you're gonna work them off for this amount of time and I'm just gonna send you the stuff I need you to print for me. So you can clean it, so I don't have to. Yeah, that's it. Until I get an employee full time to like do that stuff, manage the printers and the resin stuff, I don't think I'll be touching resin anymore. It's not worth the juice isn't worth the squeeze for me.
So what type of printers are there besides resin? I was under questions on the resin.
No, so you have the resin, you have your standard printers that are basically, and for those of you that don't know how the printers work, think of a hot glue gun, right, with the tip, and you're squeezing out the glue and it's just building layer upon layer upon layer. That's the most well-known one. You have resin, you have, I believe it's called sintered printing, which instead of resin and the lasers, it actually utilizes sand as the support system. So when the print's done, you pull it off, you just shake it and the sand just falls out of it and the print's there with no lines, no anything. But those are $130,000 printers. The same company that I use the Mark Forge printers for, they have a $150,000 metal printer. So what it does is it prints in plastic that's infused with metal. And then after that piece comes out, the plastic is used to keep all the metal dust together on that print. And then you have to actually put it in a furnace and a kiln to cure it. And it's like solid metal. You can buff it, polish it, but it's like $100,000 for that thing. Yeah, there's all kinds of crazy printers. And now they have the standard regular printers like PLA and ABS printers that are 6 foot by 6 foot by 6 foot, like massive printers. Expensive, but yeah. That's what you want to stick with. If you're beginning, you don't want to mess with resin. Trust me.
What do you see yourself and your company in the next 5 years? You know, do you have a goal in mind that you want to reach at a certain time, or just kind of wherever the road leads you?
Yeah, so I'm definitely bleeding into mass producing certain items, right? Like, you know, like my sandbags, like certain items. She had asked before, like, how do I stay with like keeping up with my inventory? Well, certain items I can't keep in stock, and certain items are kind of like revolving doors where they just keep selling, like sandbags. You need more sandbags, you know? So those items, I want to try to get those mass produced so I can bring the cost substantially down and keep things like that in stock. But ultimately, I'd like to grow and try to get other artists that are just as good or better than me that I can trust and delegate work to. I am working with some diorama creators that do, like, for example, I'll get hit up by somebody for a job that, not that I don't have the time to do, but it's like, do I do this $150 job, or do I keep working on this $10,000 job, right? I don't want to turn that person away, but now I have these people that, you know, I might have mentored, or I might have shown how to do certain things, and I'm like, hey, Josh, you got some time? I got a customer that wants to do X, Y, and Z. I gave him this price, you can have it. You know, and I pass it on, so at least this way the customer still feels as though that they got their job done, and it's a good job, and I kind of helped somebody else make some money too, and I didn't really turn away a job, because a lot of times I turn them away because you need it tomorrow or you need it in a month, but I don't have any time, you know? So.
Okay, I hate to say it, but that's tough.
Cool.
Yeah.